What's up, guys? Coach Gaglione with another Gags Garage Gym Reviews. And this is our first episode of a gym tour other than my own. This is the Burke gym. This is Lisa Burke, one of our team members of over 5 years, competitive powerlifter, masters athlete. And she was kind of dealing with a little bit of shoulder pain, so we're kind of looking at her bench press today. So Lisa does online programming and coaching through Turnkey Coach, and she's also been kind of a hybrid member when she used to live in New Jersey and I was still in New York. But this is our kind of first workout together in quite some time, maybe 2 years or so. So she moved down to Florida. I was kind of coaching in the area, so we got a workout session in our garage gym. And you can kind of see that got a half rack here, which can be a good option for lighter work, and if you're working with multiple people, as well as the full cage. I think is going to be your best option if you're kind of a strength enthusiast, or certainly if you're a competitive power lifter. I do think actually a power rack is a better choice. Even if you're someone that competes out of stands from a safety standpoint, having the ability to kind of put like straps or pins in, it's going to be good here. And, Lisa choose to have like an adjustable bench, depending on how good of a bencher you are. You may opt to get like more of a sturdier kind of flat bench. But again, a lot of the adjustable benches are kind of still pretty good. You can see she's got some blocks under her feet as well. So blocks can be good if you're just a shorter individual, or if you just want to kind of adjust the height. There's a lot of uses for them. Those are the BC blocks from BC Strength, Coach Brett Contreras. So one of the things we were working on with Lisa is her alignment, and you could also see that I'm doing some overhead pressing here. I'm electing to use actually a squat bar. I prefer to actually press with a thicker bar, a little bit more diameter. It spreads out the forces a little bit more evenly. And then we were just kind of alternating back and forth. But if you are someone that is going to trying to build a lot of strength, and if you are training alone a lot, and maybe you're not a competitive power lifter, or you just want to just get bigger and stronger, I think the overhead press can be a good option. I've kind of gone back and forth with including it in my program. But since, for whatever reason, benching has not been feeling good, and I'll kind of get into it in a later episode, but also overhead pressing is going to be a little bit of a side quest right now. I do believe there's some carryover for improving the front delt strength for strict curl, but also, like I said, a little bit of a side quest that I'm doing. So I'm working on improving my overhead strength while in bench is just kind of on the back burner until my kind of shoulder feels better. So I think it is good to have more tools in the toolbox, just to kind of make sure. So you can kind of, one of the things that Lisa was having trouble with is kind of keeping her shoulders in good position and keeping her alignment when the weights get heavy. And you can also kind of see here, I don't have my belt on, so I'm getting probably a little bit more layback than what I normally do, but I'm trying to kind of start with a little bit of it's hard. You want to try to actually get hip drive without kind of using your knees. It's kind of weird. So I think this is also one of the reasons why the clean and press, the strict overhead press was kind of eliminated from the Olympics, because it can be kind of hard to judge like what's leg drive, what's not. And then we just did some overload with the slingshot. I think the slingshot could be a good tool to help you overload and protect your shoulders when you're benching, and also for doing push-up. It's an assistive device for bench press, push-ups, and dips from Mark Smelly Bell and howmuchyoubench.net was his original website. I'm not sure if it's still active, but I know it's markbellslingshot.com. Definitely someone I recommend a lot of his products to help kind of protect you from head to toe. There's a lot of kind of, also the hip circle is a great product from him as well if you want to kind of activate your glutes for warm up and things of that nature. And then Lisa just also wanted to work on her shoulder strength a little bit, and we kind of found that a neutral grip felt a little bit good for her. So we kind of experimented with some log clean and pressing. That felt good to her. And some of it is just for some variety. And then one of the things that we were kind of doing here was just kind of working on figuring out a setup for myself to do some seated curls. It's funny, oddly enough, Lisa does not have an easy bar. So I just elected to do some seated curls. So again, I like to go a little bit lighter. I think this is either around 85 or 95 pounds. I think I'm using a 15 kilo bar. So it's around 85 pounds. I guess maybe technically 83 pounds. But just want to get some work in on this particular day, and just kind of, again, I think when you're kind of traveling on the road, it's just good to kind of use a little bit more of an RPE-based approach or reps and reserve-based approach versus kind of hard percentages, because a lot of times with travel, different equipment, it's more important that you get good quality work in, focus on good technique, in my opinion. So All right, so as you can see here, I'm just kind of going over a couple of like technical cues with Lisa and just kind of giving her some advice. So we're kind of chit-chatting a little bit in between sets. That's kind of one of the kind of things sometimes if you do have a training partner, but I am trying to just give her some technical advice, kind of just showing her some advice in terms of things you could do to kind of hold her shoulder position. And I think one of the things when it comes to bench press specifically, some people can like over tuck their arms. That was kind of a cue that we used when we were doing a lot of shirted benching and kind of learning about benching from equipped lifters from back in the day. And I've certainly kind of done my fair share of kind of overdoing equipped cues for raw lifts. But I think it's more important. It is important that you pinch your shoulder blades to a degree to keep your chest up, but it's more important that you actually depress your shoulders down. And I would say that's really important for all three lifts. It's going to kind of activate your lower traps, kind of engage your lats a little bit, and allow you to kind of keep your upper back in a good position. So you can see kind of here, Lisa, we're kind of trying to cue her to kind of, pull her kneecaps up, squeeze her glutes so her legs are engaged, core is engaged, and then she's able to kind of drive up and over with her front delt and tricep as the prime movers here, and she's doing a good job. And again, one of the things I like about like a log or kind of a neutral grip is that you're going to allow the arms to be a little bit more in front of the body and line up a little bit better with your front deltoids. So, and again, I'm just doing some, again, seated curls here. It's a good exercise to kind of work on your transition for the strict curl. It's going to work primarily your biceps and even your front delts to a degree. They're going to assist in that kind of latter part of the elbow flexion. So definitely a good exercise. It looks kind of silly, but I found it to be useful. And then here we're kind of experimenting with the totals. We're doing some different movements with Lisa. So one of the things we're really trying to work on is strengthening the muscles around her upper back. So her rear delts, her lats, her trap fibers in all directions. So this is kind of like a modified kneeling double arm lat pull in. So we're not just trying to drive the elbows down, but we're also trying to drive the elbows in toward the body. So this is going to be effective for strengthening the lats, but also in a context where you're kind of more similar to kind of where you'd be like in a squat position. So we're really trying to have her hold her upper back position for all three lifts as a competitive power lifter. And it's also a good exercise to help train just the lats in general. So I think this is just like another angle. And I think I might be just kind of experimenting with her. And we'll kind of have another episode that's just about the tonal. You get to see me train with my shirt off if you're interested. Joking aside, just kind of did a quick workout. So one of the things I realized on the tonal, it was set to like, I think 100 pounds per arm. And that was just a little bit heavy instead of like, I wanted it to be like 100 or, 100, 120 pounds total. So especially without like a thigh pad, that was just a little bit too much. So if you don't have a thigh pad for pull downs, doing either higher reps or single arm training is what I would suggest. But anyway, so there was a little bit of a learning curve for the tonal, but overall I did like the experience. The resistance was super smooth. I'll get a little bit more into my thoughts on it in a later episode. But again, just in general, if you're training for strength, if you're training for powerlifting, the lats are more of a stability muscle. They're not a prime mover. So I do think that it's important to use a little bit slower tempo, a little bit higher reps, more of a focus on like time under tension. Whether time under tension is a thing or not in terms of if it's going to help hypertrophy outcomes, learning to get like training for muscular endurance is going to be important. If you are grinding a squat, a bench, a deadlift, and it takes several seconds, if your lats don't have the strength to kind of keep you in a good position, then you're going to potentially get out of the groove and fail the lift. So that's where when things like, there's some hip musculature, core musculature, lat musculature, so the upper back, the muscles of your trunk. And again, so if you think about like some muscles around your hip, some muscles around the upper back are going to be, directly tied into your trunk, like your lats kind of attached to your lower back, some of your hip muscles kind of attached, anything that attaches to either your spine or your pelvis is going to potentially influence your shoulder position. So that's something you need to kind of really figure out. So you can kind of see here that I'm kind of cueing her to drive the shoulder blades down. One of the things that I kind of needed to kind of learn the hard way, and I've had a lot of shoulder problems over the years, is that it's really important to let the scapula move. So a lot of times when we're shirted benching, when we're powerlifting, we're really trying to hold everything static, and that's for good reason because we're trying to hold positions. But in terms when we're trying to work the function of our shoulders in particular, it's important to let that kind of, it's called a scapular humeral rhythm. So you want to let the shoulder blades naturally elevate as you raise the arms up, and the shoulder blades naturally kind of depress kind of on the way down. So that's a really important factor when you're kind of using a lot of lat training. All right, so now here you can kind of see one of the other things that we're, besides like holding the torso position, holding the back position, I wanted to really give Lisa a good exercise that's going to really target the triceps. That wasn't just kind of a dumbbell movement. And dumbbell movements are totally fine. But in terms of trying to take the shoulders out of it, helping the bar path, and just kind of also kind of working the stretch position, which again, dumbbells do totally fine. But this is going to kind of help line up with the shoulders a little bit easier than dumbbells in my opinion. So we have a cross body kind of triceps push out, kind of another kind of exercise inspired from Doug Bergnoli. So again, we're trying to experiment with the angles a little bit. This can be done one arm at a time as well. If you want the same time, again, you could do so. In terms of if you're a bigger, stronger guy and like your stack is limited on a cable or your dumbbells are limited, then potentially doing like single arm, like true unilateral training. You can kind of see here that I'm starting to kind of struggle. Did some lengthened partials. So, and it's a little sometimes cumbersome. But the cool thing about the tonal, again, I'll get into, you can kind of stop it at any point. So it helps you kind of get in and out of position. So you can kind of hit a button to let the weight engage and also hit a button to disengage the weight so if you kind of get into trouble. So again, one of the things we were trying to work on with Lisa was having a little bit more of a powerful lockout. So still holding her shoulders in a good position and then learning to kind of fire her triceps independent from her like front delts and chest. So this is kind of a good kind of exercise for that. And one of my kind of favorites, again, you can kind of do this unilaterally. You can do this cross body. You can do this a bunch of different ways, but essentially you're really trying to get just the tricep to kind of fire. And if you kind of do notice, it does kind of look like you're kind of locking out a bench press here. So definitely one of my favorite tricep exercises. There's a lot of different kind of ways you can kind of set this up and kind of angle it. So depending on, you know, what you have access to, if you don't have access to cables, you could do bands. There's a lot of different things you can kind of do in terms of setting up. So here, this is one of the things that kind of, on the surface, it kind of looks like kind of a lengthened partial row. So I have my feet out in front, so that's kind of like the disadvantage if you don't have like a foot plate with this. But all I'm working on is scapular retraction. So again, this is going to really kind of help with allowing you to kind of set up your bench, hold your bench set up, and just kind of, again, it's going to work all kind of the middle trap fibers and also kind of help with that kind of, and if you just have like a goal of just getting a thicker back. But I'm really just kind of working on, so the elbows are going to move a little bit incidentally, but again, the emphasis is more kind of out to in versus straight back. So something like a tonal, again, you can kind of set up the arms however you want. If you have a functional trainer, that's going to be, and again, if you're not able to kind of get this exact setup, there's a lot of different, you know, kind of workarounds for this. I have some other, you know, solutions on my YouTube channel. If you search like kind of maybe Brig 20 or scapular retraction, again, this is kind of a variation, again, from like Doug Bergnoli. So I'm trying to also like not really move my torso too much, but again, just to get a little bit more of a stretch, you can kind of see I'm leaning forward just a little bit, but I'm trying to limit the spinal motion here and just get mostly from my shoulder blades and my scapula kind of pulling in around my rib cage, and then my scapula kind of going pulling apart around my rib cage to stretch the muscle. And as we kind of get older, the scapula can kind of get very sticky. So you can kind of see here, she's trying to, you know, use a lot of rear delt and other muscles. We're trying to really get her to use her middle trap fibers to kind of do that. So again, if the scapular retractors and your kind of middle trap fibers are kind of weak or inhibited, this is going to be really tough for a lot of people. But again, just trying to imagine the shoulder blades kind of gliding around the rib cage, spreading apart, and then kind of coming together. Really good kind of assistance exercise to help kind of set you up in a good position for your bench press, in my opinion. And also just kind of just good for just shoulder health in general to get the shoulder blades moving. So these are going to be some things. This is we're going to kind of incorporate in Lisa's program on Turnkey Coach. The tonal also does a nice job of kind of data tracking as well if you don't have a coach. And you're a little bit more hypertrophy based, but at the end of the day, The cable stuff, in my opinion, is more of an accessory if you want to get stronger. So here's also just another angle. You can kind of really see my kind of back kind of spread and contract. So you can kind of see my shoulders. So there's a little bit of elevation and depression too. But again, the main focus is scapular retraction. But again, when I'm benching, squatting, and deadlifting, there's going to be some element of scapular depression, which is going to be more of the lower trap fibers. But in terms of where the resistance is coming from, the resistance is kind of pulling me forward and also pulling me apart. So that's where, again, this is going to more line up with my mid-trap fibers, where something like that lat pull-in, not only the lats, but also it's going to work that, the lower trap fibers. So anytime your shoulder blades is elevating and depressing, it's going to be, your lower trap is going to be involved. And if your arm is kind of coming out to in, kind of pulling your elbows in toward your ribs, it's going to work more of your lats. And if you're more of a vertical pulling motion, it's going to be more lats and lower trap fibers. If you're more of a horizontal pulling direction, it's going to be more, kind of your mid back, your rhomboids, middle trapezius fibers kind of working. Rear deltoid to a degree. The rear deltoid is also going to kind of drive the arms out, a little bit more of kind of a transverse plane or kind of rotational motion. And then if you're doing something like from the floor, it's going to be more kind of upper trap involvement as well. So if you're thinking about like doing shrugs and stuff and like high to low type rows. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.